Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome. We're going to start in a minute or two. We have a recording set to start and transcription. You should be able to unmute if you want to ask a question, but their chat is available to you as well. So we're just going to give it another minute for people to join.
Feel free to drop into the chat as well if you want to say like, where you work, who you're joining from, what you'd like to find out from the session. Obviously, we have a presentation prepared, but we're more than happy to answer any questions at the end.
I might be the only person joining from Tipperary, you never know.
And me.
Oh, well, yes, of course. Both myself and Mel are North Tip. Yes, I was forgetting that. So, yeah, and we have a Wexford era.
Yes, not a native Wexford person, but close enough.
Yeah, and I see Hillary's here. She's Wicklow. Where are you joining? You're, I think, yeah, isn't it? Oh, Wexford too.
We have another Wexford. Great.
There you go. It's important to have representation. Oh, no tea from Galway. That's great.
We still got more people joining, so we'll just give it another
minute there. That's brilliant.
Kildare. Lovely.
Although I'm originally a dub, I don't know whether
like
I might be a Tipperary.
We won't hold it against you.
I know, yeah, I might be a Tipperary 18 years, so I'm definitely not considered local. Yeah, I'm still a blow-in.
I never followed GAA even as a child, so like I don't have those rivalries like ingrained in me. So.
That's going against you. Yeah.
Kind of helps when you're from Tipperary.
It does. Yeah. There's
a lot of rivalries.
Every county, it turns out, Mel. Every county.
Yeah.
Is a threat. That's great to see people joining. We're going to start in a minute. We're just going to give it, it's just 31 there now. There's people still
Hopefully there's
in.
no one from Kilkenny.
we
actually have a colleague from Kilkenny. She's not with us today, but
North Tipperary people don't want to take on the Kilkenny people. We don't do well.
Dublin.
Great. You're very welcome. We're delighted to have you here today.
Another Dublin.
Yeah.
Being QA.
Okay. Great. Mel, do you want to just kick off with the welcomes just as people are joining? That would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. Perfect. So I suppose, hello, everyone. You're all very welcome to our webinar this morning, just on all things related to the Work and Access grant. And I suppose the amazing selection of free supports that are available under this scheme. As a lot of you, I suppose, will be aware, today is also the first day of Autism Acceptance Month. And as someone who is autistic myself and has actually benefited from the workplace supports that are provided through the scheme, I'm really excited for you to hear about this topic today. And I suppose I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day today to listen to us explain a bit more about how you or even a colleague on your team can access these same supports. My name is Melissa Mooney. I'm a business and support executive at Specialisterne. So I work mainly with employers and employees to understand what business supports would best support their neurodivergent employees to thrive in their roles. I suppose workplace needs assessments, in-work support and training supports funded through this Work and Access scheme is something that I deal with on a daily basis in my role. So more than happy to answer any questions that people have at the end of the presentation today from my own perspective, dealing with the scheme. And I'll hand you over to Terry for a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. So I'm also neurodivergent. I'm dyslexic and I'm going to be undergoing an ADHD assessment. So both of us have been through had workplace needs assessments, and both of us have used the scheme. So we're qualified. We'd like to think. So just a bit of housekeeping. This is going to be recorded, but only for the first 15 minutes while we're going through the slide deck. And then we're going to stop recording so that people can ask questions if they want to. And the recording then will go out to everybody for you to share. And we have some extra information if you want to, we can give you at the end. But yeah, just really to say, if you want to ask a question at any stage, just pop it in the chat. Mel's going to keep an eye on that. I'll do the slides for 15 minutes. And then you can either do the chat, ask a question at the end, or we'll be giving our emails. So if that's better for you and you don't want to go into it here, contact myself and Mel after, and we can either email you back or set up a chat or something like that. So have a call. Sometimes that can be a good way to figure out what next steps are. Okay, so as I said, I've got 15 minutes of slides just to really bring you through the process. So who we are is an organization called Specialisterne. Funny name, it's a Danish name, and it's one we've got to live with. So we are in Ireland 13 years, as I said, part of a bigger organization nationally or internationally. And what we do quite specifically is we work with companies, employees, line managers, HR, talent acquisition teams, and we provide trainings on being a diverse and inclusive culture. We provide workplace needs assessments, in-work support, and coaching. So I'm going to just cover 3 topics today, 3 learning objectives, and I'll go through them quite quickly. Disclosures, reasonable accommodations, and then we'll get to the actual supports. So we wanted to acknowledge, because we weren't sure who would be on the call, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that disclosing takes an awful lot of trust, and you're bringing a part of yourself into work that other people aren't expected to, really, and you're having to be open about that, and it can make you quite vulnerable. So we wanted to acknowledge the fact that it is a difficult thing if you are a line manager or an employer, that somebody who's talking to you might need you to be patient. They might need 2 or 3 chats. They might need you not to talk about somebody else who's autistic or dyslexic, and just to hear their experience. So yeah, and to be mindful that any information shared is confidential. Don't share it without the permission of the individual. Disclosures can be made either formally or informally, and this is something I didn't appreciate previously. So you might be having a meeting with HR, and as a HR person yourself, you might have this formal setting where a person says to you, I have a diagnosis, or I'm struggling in work, and I feel it could be because my ADHD, for example. Now, if somebody discloses informally over a coffee in the canteen, that is still considered a disclosure. And I think that's really important for us to know. And as a disclosure is made, you are covered under law. So the Employment Equality Act provides protection to both parties, the employee and the employer. And what it wants to do is make sure that reasonable accommodations are provided. And they're what we're going to be looking for. So remember, as an employee, if you're disclosing, it should allow you to access supports to effectively do your job and maintain your well-being. So avoiding things like burnout, stress. What you want to be able to do is turn up in your workplace and access your daily tasks. Okay, and that just might need some additional supports to help you do that. As an employer, we would say be proactive. Consider what supports and reasonable accommodations are out there. And under the law, we can see case law coming in, and it's showing that the onus is on the employer and not on the employee. And to see what can I do? And that's really where we segue into a workplace needs assessment. What can be done here that is reasonable? So that's disclosures. I'm going to move into reasonable accommodations. And again, if we look under the law, you want to see, where are we being signposted? The first thing that comes up really is that it shouldn't be a disproportionate burden on the employer. So if you're in a company with 5,000 people or you're in a company with 5 people, that's going to look very different. So it shouldn't be a disproportionate burden. And the law does take that into consideration, the size of your organization and the amount of resources you have. For that reason, the workplace needs assessment, assistive technology, all of those supports can be accessed for free under the grant. So it's not that an employer can say, I can't afford to do this reasonable accommodation. It is being made available for them at nil cost. Secondly, we would love to see, if we want to know what is reasonable, we would do an assessment. And that assessment will look and see what kind of supports are very specific to this person. And we have that discussion with the line manager and with the individual, and we see what is a reasonable accommodation. So the assessment's fantastic for figuring that out. And then lastly, it's really important to see, and I think this is just something that I've added in, any decision should be documented. And that's for the protection of all parties. If I'm talking to a HR person, I would say document reasonable accommodations that are being provided. If I was talking to an employee, I would say document reasonable accommodations that are being provided, because things change. What measures were you given? When were they last reviewed? Are they still appropriate? If you don't feel you're being heard, it's good to have a record. So all of these are just some bullet points that maybe help you to move along the path when you're trying to figure out for yourself what a reasonable accommodation will look like. So as I said, we've been doing this for a number of years, and we do workplace needs assessments specifically for neurodivergent people. So a lot of the time we're looking at the sensory environment, we're looking at people's communication skills and challenges, we're looking at maybe behaviors, routines, repetition, those kind of things. They would be a lot of the areas we would focus on. So what is reasonable? So say you're in a work environment and you're getting a lot of tasks from a lot of different projects or a lot of different managers, and it's lacking structure. So that's one thing we might look at. You might find that for the majority of your tasks, they're manageable, but there are some tasks, and we all have them, that require additional time. I have a lot of issues with my dyslexia and transferring numbers. So numerically, I would struggle, and it takes me a lot longer to do things that would have numerical calculations in them. So I will need extra time for that. Getting instructions in your preferred way. Say I'm in a meeting with Melissa, for example, and at the end of the meeting, we might say to one another, like I might say to Mel or she might say to me, maybe jot down what our objectives are from that meeting, just so we're both on the same page. And that's a really clear way of a manager and an employee having a back and forth to see, have we both agreed how we're moving forward? Because after a few years doing this, communication and miscommunication is one of the things we see all of the time coming up. So I'm not going to go through all of the examples. Having a buddy, having extra breaks. So maybe instead of a 20-minute break, 2 10-minute breaks, getting a noise cancelling headset, assistive technology. They are all what we would consider coming up as reasonable accommodations. So now we want to see is how do you access them, right? So the workplace needs assessment, in-work support and coaching are all supports that we provide and are all, I have to say, game changers in terms of being able to do your work and being able to, we talked about well-being. The workplace needs assessment, and I think this is really important. It's down there under note 5, but I'm going to say it again and later. An employee or an employer can apply for a workplace needs assessment. So if you're in your job and you think it would help you and you have a diagnosis, go ahead and talk to us about maybe getting a workplace needs assessment. Or if you're an employer or a line manager and you have somebody in your team, maybe it's something to say, I was at a webinar today, this workplace needs assessment came up. It might be of help, and you can just send this out in a general team email, not to ever, not pointing anyone particular, and just say anyone feels that they would benefit from it. I'm a little bit more informed. There's a company that's doing them. We can have that chat. So that's a nice way to signpost a support without singling anybody out. So what is it? Back to it. Workplace needs assessment. You're talking about how would we do it? Right. So what we would do is we would set up a call with the applicant, and then separately with the line manager. So 2 different calls, and that's really just an opportunity to tell you about the process and for you to ask a few questions. If you want to proceed, we make an application. Now, the application comes from you. It's quite detailed, and we're very happy to support on that. If and when you get your approval, then what happens is we set up a time to visit your place of work, or we can do it online, and we spend an hour with the employee, and then an hour with the line manager. Okay, and the objective is to go through in that hour all of the duties and responsibilities that you have in your job, and where's your challenges, and what would a solution, look like. So it's very collaborative, it's very problem solving, and that conversation happens with both people. And I think a lot of companies doing workplace needs assessments only talk to the individual. And I think it's key to also talk to the line manager, because going forward, there's an education piece for both parties, and both parties need to feel supported. So that's why we spend that extra time going back and forth with both. And then we will make recommendations, and we will see, do those recommendations fit in the business context to inform future support. So that's the workplace needs assessment, the physicality of what it looks like, come out with a report. The support, the actual report, this whole process is paid for under the Work and Access scheme. Either the employee or the employer can apply for it. It can help you navigate, we can help you navigate the application process. You do need to have a diagnosis. They say they will also accept a detailed letter from your GP to say you have a health condition over 12 months. And we can help you if you want to proceed, or if you have questions. Just nearly finished, last few slides. In-work support. In-work support is what a lot of people decide to have a workplace needs assessment for. It is a fantastic support whereby you are provided with scheduled calls at an interval that suits you. So for example, both myself and Mel provide in-work support to neurodivergent employees in different companies, and we all do in the team. And what we do is we liaise with that person and we say, do you want to call in a week? Do you want to call in a fortnight? And those calls are done over Teams, and we'll sit with them and we'll ask them, how did this week go? What has come up for you? And we'll help them to problem solve, or maybe self-advocate in the workplace, or just tackle maybe a couple of challenges that they feel maybe is overwhelming them, and we can just have that chat. And some weeks people turn up and they're absolutely fine. Like, nothing's come up for me this week, and we'll say, well, okay, that's good, and we'll talk to you next week. The in-work support is a chance to connect with somebody who's not your line manager and not HR. And what it does is it provides open, clear opportunity for you to be heard and to problem solve and to look forward, so that you don't feel things are overwhelming you and you get derailed, and all of a sudden, and for some people it's head in the sand and it's just pressure, anxiety, burnout. So this is a continuous level of support that is done at intervals that you pick, and it's done over a 12-month period. And the government pay for up to €12,000 a year of in-work support. So you choose your preferred supplier, and then what they do is they pay them directly. So again, no cost to your employer. It is an absolutely fantastic support service. And what it really does is feeds into a retention piece. So, and helps you to navigate work on a week-to-week basis. There's somebody not muted there. Okay, so just to finish up, key learnings for employers. If you are an employer, you need to be aware that either you or your employee can make an application. Under the Employment Equality Act, be very mindful to be proactive. In Ann O'Neill, they actually said that what they would be looking for is for employers to be proactive in considering measures rather than putting the onus on the employee. They have also said that the obligation to provide a reasonable accommodation can only be properly satisfied when an employer has put out an assessment, whether it's medical, ergonomic, occupational, or neurodivergent focus. And that will help see what appropriate measures. It's very difficult when an employer turns around and says that can't be done when they haven't done an assessment. And that's what we see under the law. Do the assessment and then see what's appropriate. And lastly, engage. Have a consultation. And this is what came up in the recent Tracy case, that there was a lack of consultation. This is all coming from a wonderful 5-minute read article. And we'll send you out the slide, and maybe we can put this link, I'll put this link into the chat, just from A Good Body. It's very helpful. It shows a few tips on what your obligations are under the law, and I've summarized them here. And been proactive, do an assessment, and do have engagement. If you're an employee and you'd like to make an application, you have to be over 18. You must be in one of these categories of work, you have to have a disability or a long-term health condition, or getting a long-term disability payment. And it's important to note, if you're in the civil service, unfortunately, working access is not available to you if you are in the public sector or in an unpaid role. And we do provide them. We provide a lot of workplace needs assessments for public sector workers, but they're just done under a different avenue. It's not done through there is no grant funding. It's funded by the department themselves. So it is there, it is available, it is being done. It is just you don't use the grant for it. I hope that's clear. And then I just wanted to bring up the link to the Work and Access site from the Department of Social Protection. Oh, there's a lot of information there. Like, there's a lot of information there. So it can be a bit overwhelming. So that's why we are saying we'd be happy to help you navigate it. My own name is Terry Gleeson again, and that's my email, and my colleague is Melissa, and that is her email. So please feel free to reach out. And that's what this is all about. It's about retention and supporting people in the workplace.